This is an examination of the hidden human condition.
This is the Hidden Killers Podcast
with Tony Brueski.
So, what does the purpose of an appeal serve in Alex Murdaugh's case? They filed one. If it does go anywhere, other than just to say, maybe you didn't do it, or if it goes back to a trial and even find him innocent, which is highly, highly, highly unlikely, or to be completely thrown out, highly, highly, highly unlikely, is it just the legacy thing of, look, he was found to be not guilty, but he's still in jail for the rest of his life for the financial crimes and all the other shitty things that he's done to everybody. I don't know. I guess it's kind of a throw spaghetti at the wall situation right now. We're talking with Jim Rathmann, former Secret Service investigative consultant, about just that. What's your thoughts on the verdict, Jim?
I thought the jury got it right. I thought they saw it the same way the rest of us did. I think the biggest things for Murdaugh that he just couldn't get past was one, the Snapchat video. That Snapchat video puts him on the scene. It's really hard to now have your alibi when you set the stage for an entire year before they got that video about how you pulled up. This is what you saw. He's at different locations, everything else that he was trying to throw out there to throw off the investigation. And all of a sudden you're actually on the scene within 3 minutes, 4 minutes tops of them passing away or being murdered. It's pretty hard to get out of that because you already locked him in on the statement. So I think that became incredibly difficult. But I think the other question, the common sense question, my opinion anyway, is why on earth would you sit there and lie about your son and your wife being brutally murdered, and you came up on them and you're choosing to lie to investigators? I think the natural reaction of just about everybody is, I'll give the investigators everything and anything they need. Just please find the killer.
Yeah.
So major red flag with that.
Yeah, I mean, I was really curious as to, number one, why he went on the stand, and number two, to lead with that, to come out and say that right away. I can't imagine. I mean, this had to have been discussed between his legal counsel and such before he said that. What did it have?
I think that it would be. Obviously, testifying was a mistake, but you got to look at a guy whose family's been in charge for 80, 90 years plus in the whole entire area. He clearly thinks he's the smartest person. It's that ego. It's that narcissism. It's that sociopathic behavior that makes him feel he is so much more superior than everybody else. He's the smartest guy in the room, but clearly he wasn't that smart. And it came back to bite him. And I think going up and testifying, trying to play on the heartstrings with Paul and all the other names he was throwing out there, was just, nobody believed it. I didn't believe it at all. I knew what he was trying to do, and I think it was pretty obvious for most people watching.
Were you surprised at how quick the jury came back with the verdict?
I thought they did come back a little quick. Now, that can either be in two things. Either they thought all along that there's no way this guy could have committed this because there wasn't enough evidence, so it could work out really well for the defense. Or on the prosecution side, from their take of it, even all the circumstantial evidence and the testimonies, it's so blatantly obvious that he did this. So when they came back, I knew it was going to be one extreme to the other, but I just couldn't, putting myself in the jury box, I couldn't see how they wouldn't convict him at this point. Because again, the same questions I would think about is, why would you lie about your wife and kid being murdered? That makes no sense. Clearly you're lying about everything else. And then, hey, what about all those drugs? I mean, you're talking a $2.5 million personal drug habit he was doing at that time. I mean, there's so many things.
Yeah, I mean, it's just shocking as to how far that goes. And it's still, the question is still there. Where is the money? Are they ever going to find the money, in your opinion? Are they going to dig deeper into this? I guess that's my question is have they not dug deeper? Is that going to be part of the financial crimes trial? Because this was not about the money. This was about murder. Is that something that will be more brought up in that next round that we're about to see?
So I think you bring up a great question, right? As I've heard a lot of people sit there and say, well, the financials don't actually prove murder. And in a way, I can understand what they're talking about. But this particular case is a little bit different because we're not really talking about personal use here, right? So it definitely proves character. And so I think initially, the reason he stole some of that money from the law firm years ago was to pay perhaps for the initial payments of drugs. And he began running some sort of drug operation with some other people. $2.5 million, so you're talking about a lot of cash coming in and coming out. If he's spending, as he puts it, $50,000 a week, that's an awful lot of money, and personal drug habits. So obviously he was receiving a lot of cash for a long period of time. Most drug dealers and most people that have large amounts of cash, they bury it and they hide it. So it's probably somewhere on that property. It's just a matter of where exactly is it? Is it under the crops that he's growing? Where exactly did he put it? I think in time it'll be found. I think perhaps Buster might know a little bit about where that money is hidden. Obviously, Alec clearly knows where that money's hidden, but I think it's been buried. It's underground. They're going to have to locate it to pay back, to the people that were victimized by him stealing all that money.
And you're not even speaking figuratively. You're speaking literally. This cash is in a box under the dirt.
Absolutely. I've known plenty of people involved that do not want the banking systems. I mean, look, anything with $10,000 or more, especially in a cash value, needs to have a paper trail. So it's really hard to run a drug operation or even try to have it as a cover into some sort of legitimized business as your way to flowing it in and out. It's much easier for him to take it. He has several acres of property that he owns there in South Carolina. He might as well just bury it on his own property. Nobody's going to be going on there anyway. And if you bury it right and hide it and disguise it, it'd be really tough for anybody to find.
Wow, I mean that's something that it doesn't even cross my mind anymore. I always think it's going to a bank account in the Bahamas. I know that was something that was brought up earlier in the week because they had traveled to the Bahamas shortly after the boating accident. Paul was still alive. Paul was actually on that trip. Doesn't mean you go to the Bahamas and you necessarily need to go to the Bahamas to transact money by any means, but that was where I was thinking the money was, in some sort of an offshore account.
It's very possible. But again, even that, you could leave some sort of trail somewhere.
Yeah.
So if you really want nobody to know where this is and be completely undetectable, you bury it. And it's not uncommon for people that deal with high amounts of cash and illegitimate businesses to do just that and hide it and bury it. You got to remember, too, you also said Paul was like a detective. The day that he and Maggie were murdered, they were going to confront him because Maggie found the stash of pills in his computer bag. And so he was texted by Paul, and Paul let him know that, we're going to talk to you. And as Alec always said, it was that, Paul was like a detective.
And that was very interesting wording that he said that night when they're in the car with Sled. It's like, he's like a little detective. Like, why would that even be brought up?
So you would think that if Paul was with him and he put millions of dollars into a foreign account somewhere, that information would probably come out. So I don't know if he would have done that if he thought Paul was a little detective.
That's interesting to think about. And let me ask you this. So the Moselle is up for sale. I believe there's actually a tentative buyer on the property itself. Let's say you get there, you own it now, you do a little gardening and digging and you find the stash of money. Is it now yours? Or
I would. Go ahead.
Or
is it yours?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I don't know. Is it though, or would it be seized by the government going, this is part of a crime investigation? Or do you ever speak up and say, I found $1 million underneath the tomatoes?
I'll tell you this much. If I'm ever on that property, or if I was the one that owned that property, I'd be doing everything I can with some sort of ground penetrating radar to find out where that cash is at. And then when you don't see me again, because I'm living on an island, you'll just know.
That's a good way of looking at it. Where do you think, and now they just filed appeals on this, where do you think that will go from here?
I don't think it'll go anywhere. I think Alec is toast. I think he knows it. He clearly knows that he didn't win over the jury. He wasn't the smartest guy in the room. The judge didn't have any mercy on him. I think everybody's kind of horrified and disgusted by this. So he can go for the appeals. But I don't see there was no malicious prosecution. I don't know of any or see any Brady Act violations. I don't see any exculpatory evidence that could have exonerated him. I think the prosecution did a heck of a job. I think the law enforcement did a great job collecting everything they could to put together a solid case. And again, he's going to have a tough time getting past or getting an appeal when you have a video that you didn't even know about that puts you on the scene within minutes.
What is the point of even filing an appeal at this point? Is it simply to maybe have your not be known as the one who killed your wife and child on the record? Or I'm kind of confounded or confused as to why they would even be going down that road.
Well, you have to throw everything at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah.
And so you got to go through the process, because you never know. What if there was some sort of Brady Act violation that comes out in the future, or there was something that the prosecution held back that didn't give it to the defense that could have been seen as exculpatory evidence. So you always go through the process. It's the same thing as when a criminal is initially arrested and you go and, they ask you the question during your arraignment, how do you plead? You're always going to plead not guilty. And any attorney, or at least, a reasonable attorney, will tell their client, just plead not guilty, because we want to see what evidence they have. What do they have? Let's go through the process, because there might be something to get, there were some mistakes made, and then you could walk free from this. If you go in there and you say you're guilty, you don't even attempt it, then you'll never know, right? So same thing here. He went through the whole entire trial. So why not go through the appeals process just to see what happens?
This is an examination of the hidden human condition.
This is the Hidden Killers Podcast.
The Hidden Killers Podcast.
With Tony Brueski.
Always great to hear Jim's perspective. Jim Rathmann, former Secret Service investigative consultant. Thank you for that. Be sure to press subscribe wherever you download podcasts. You don't miss any of our breaking updates and discussions on the cases that we are following for you. The complete list can be found in the episode description. You can even get a commercial-free experience of the show. If you like to listen with no ads, we got that for you. You can subscribe through Apple Podcasts right there. You can try it for 3 days free. My name is Tony Brueski. Stay with us.